Before we begin, take a moment and just pause, because what is about to happen tonight is not just another passing astrological moment. This is one of those rare alignments that quietly slips into the timeline and changes the way people see their lives. And the strange part is, most people will never notice it happening. They will move through tonight just like any other night, distracted by the noise of everyday life, unaware that the sky has opened a small window of clarity above them. But if you are hearing this message right now, it means something a little different for you. Because tonight, Mercury enters the heart of the sun. This is what astrologers call a Mercury Cazimi, a rare cosmic alignment where the planet of thought, communication, and awareness moves directly into the center of the sun's energy. And when that happens, something unusual occurs. The fog that usually surrounds our thinking begins to burn away. For a brief moment, the mind becomes incredibly clear. Truth surfaces, and the universe begins delivering a message that has been waiting for the exact right moment to reach you. This is why tonight is not just another astrological event. It is a portal of awareness, a moment when hidden understanding rises to the surface and demands to be seen. And for many people, that message will arrive in ways they didn't expect. Sometimes the universe doesn't shout when it wants your attention. Sometimes it whispers at the exact moment you finally become quiet enough to hear it. And that whisper can change everything. Right now, there are people all around the world who have been feeling a strange kind of tension building inside their mind over the past few days. Thoughts repeating themselves, questions resurfacing, old memories suddenly appearing out of nowhere. If that has been happening to you, you're not imagining it. That is the energy of Mercury slowly approaching the sun, pulling unresolved thoughts into the light. It's almost like your mind has been preparing for a realization that is about to arrive. And tonight, that realization becomes unavoidable. This is the moment where something you've been circling around mentally finally reveals its truth. Maybe it's a situation you've been overthinking for weeks. Maybe it's a relationship dynamic you've quietly felt shifting beneath the surface. Or maybe it's a decision you've been postponing because part of you was afraid to confront what you already knew deep down. Mercury Cazimi has a strange way of cutting through those internal debates, not with force, but with clarity. The kind of clarity that suddenly makes something obvious that once felt complicated. You might wake up tomorrow and realize that the answer you've been searching for was never actually hidden. It was simply waiting for the moment when your mind was ready to see it. And tonight is that moment. Now here is something important that many people misunderstand about these cosmic alignments. When people hear that the universe is sending a message, they expect something dramatic, a sign in the sky, a life-changing event, some overwhelming spiritual experience that instantly transforms everything. But Mercury doesn't work that way. Mercury communicates through subtlety, through conversations, through timing, through the exact right words appearing at the exact right moment, which means the message meant for you tonight may arrive in the most ordinary way imaginable. It could be a sentence someone says casually during a conversation, a video you randomly stumble across, a memory that suddenly makes sense in a way it never did before. It might even arrive as a quiet thought inside your own mind that feels so simple you almost dismiss it. But that thought is the message. And this is why tonight comes with a warning. Because the biggest mistake people make during a Mercury Cazimi is ignoring the truth when it finally appears. The realization often feels so straightforward that people convince themselves it can't possibly be that important. They talk themselves out of it. They overanalyze it. They return to the comfort of confusion instead of accepting clarity. But tonight is not meant for confusion. Tonight is meant for recognition. Recognition of something your soul has been trying to show you for a long time. In fact, one of the strange side effects of this alignment is that people often begin noticing small mental glitches or unusual moments of awareness. You might lose your train of thought mid-sentence, forget a word you normally use all the time, misplace something you were just holding seconds ago. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for daily cosmic insights, astrology updates, and spiritual guidance, because the universe always has a message for you. These little moments might feel random, but they are actually signs that the mind is processing a huge amount of internal information beneath the surface. During a Mercury Cazimi, your thoughts are moving faster than usual. Your mind is sorting through memories, experiences, and patterns like files on a desk. And it is looking for one specific realization, the one piece of understanding that finally connects everything. Think of it like a puzzle. For weeks, months, or maybe even years, pieces have been scattered across your experiences. And tonight, those pieces begin locking into place. When that happens, something amazing occurs. The mental noise that has been following you begins to fade. The questions that kept repeating themselves start to lose their grip. And suddenly, the path forward looks clearer than it did before. This is the real power of Mercury Cazimi. It doesn't change your life by forcing external events to happen. It changes your life by transforming the way you see your own reality. Because once you see something clearly, you can never go back to the confusion that existed before. Now, there is another reason why this particular alignment is so powerful. It is happening in Pisces, and Pisces is the sign of intuition, memory, and emotional understanding. While other signs focus on logic and analysis, Pisces speaks through feeling, through symbolism, through the deeper layers of awareness that live beneath the surface of everyday thought. This means the message arriving tonight may not feel like a logical conclusion. It may feel more like remembering something you already knew. A sudden sense that a situation finally makes sense. An emotional clarity about something that once felt confusing. This is the language of Pisces. It doesn't explain truth. It reveals it. And for many people, that revelation will come through memories resurfacing. Old conversations replaying themselves in your mind. Moments from the past suddenly appearing with a new meaning. You might remember something someone said years ago and realize what they truly meant. You might recall a decision you made and finally understand why it happened the way it did. These memories are not returning randomly. They are returning because they contain a message, a piece of wisdom that your present self is finally ready to understand. Sometimes the universe doesn't send a new message. Sometimes it simply shows you the meaning behind an old one. And when that meaning becomes clear, something inside you relaxes. The tension you've been carrying begins to release, because the question that once haunted your mind has finally been answered. For people who have been stuck in cycles of overthinking, tonight could feel like the moment the universe gently pulls you out of that spiral. Overthinking thrives on uncertainty. But Mercury Cazimi removes just enough uncertainty to collapse the loop entirely. Instead of running the same scenarios through your head again and again, you suddenly realize the truth that was quietly sitting there all along. And that realization can feel incredibly freeing. It's like stepping out of a maze and realizing the exit was right beside you the entire time. This is why tonight's alignment carries such a hopeful energy. It isn't here to scare you. It isn't here to warn you about something negative. It is here to reveal something important, something that helps you move forward with confidence instead of doubt. Something that reminds you that the universe has been guiding you even during moments when things felt uncertain. And if you notice something interesting tonight, A conversation that feels strangely meaningful, a thought that feels unusually clear, a memory that suddenly makes perfect sense. Don't dismiss it. Pause. Listen. Pay attention. Because that moment might be the message you've been waiting for. And sometimes the smallest realization becomes the turning point that changes everything. So move into tonight with awareness. Stay open to the quiet signals around you, and trust that clarity is already finding its way toward you, because when Mercury enters the heart of the sun, the universe doesn't just send information, it sends understanding. And understanding has the power to transform your entire path forward. If you're still listening right now, it may not be a coincidence. Maybe you were meant to hear this reminder tonight, that clarity is closer than you think, and that the message meant for you is already on its way. Now, here is something even more fascinating about this Mercury Cazimi portal that very few people talk about. Most people assume that clarity arrives in a single moment, like flipping a light switch. 1 second you're confused, and the next second everything suddenly makes sense. But the truth is a little more subtle than that. Clarity often arrives in layers. First comes awareness, then comes recognition, and finally comes acceptance. And tonight's alignment begins that exact process. You may notice that certain thoughts begin surfacing that feel strangely familiar, almost like your mind has been quietly trying to tell you something for a long time, but you were too busy, too distracted, or too uncertain to fully hear it. Mercury Cazimi works like a spotlight moving across the landscape of your mind. Areas that were once hidden in shadow suddenly become illuminated. Patterns become visible. Connections become obvious. And the most interesting part is that this awareness doesn't always feel dramatic. Sometimes it feels calm. Sometimes it feels peaceful. Almost like the moment when a puzzle you've been staring at finally reveals its solution. You don't feel shocked. You feel relieved, because somewhere deep inside you already knew the answer. Tonight simply gives that answer permission to rise to the surface. This is why many people experience a strange emotional shift during a Mercury Cazimi. They begin feeling lighter. Situations that once felt heavy suddenly feel manageable. Decisions that once felt complicated suddenly feel simple. And it's not because the external world has changed, it's because the way you see the situation has changed. This is one of the quiet miracles of cosmic alignment. Sometimes the universe doesn't change your circumstances, it changes your perspective. And once your perspective shifts, the entire landscape of your life begins to look different. Now, something else may happen during this portal that catches people off guard. You might notice that conversations around you start carrying unusual weight. Someone might say something casually that hits you much deeper than expected. You might hear a sentence, a phrase, or even a joke that suddenly makes you pause and think. It feels small in the moment, but something about it sticks in your mind. This is not random. Mercury rules communication. And during a Cazimi, communication becomes unusually precise. The universe begins arranging moments where the exact words you need to hear appear at the exact moment your mind is ready to receive them. It could be a friend saying something that suddenly clarifies a situation you've been struggling with. It could be a stranger sharing a perspective that shifts the way you see something. Or it could be something as simple as reading a sentence online that feels like it was written specifically for you. When Mercury sits in the heart of the sun, information travels with purpose. Messages arrive with timing that feels almost too perfect to be coincidence. And the fascinating part is that many of these messages are not new information. They are confirmations. Confirmations of something you've already been sensing deep inside yourself. The universe often works this way. Before it changes your path externally, it aligns your inner understanding. It makes sure that when the moment of decision arrives, you will recognize the direction that feels right. And that is exactly what tonight's portal is doing, preparing your awareness for the next step in your journey. You may not see the entire road ahead yet, but you will begin to see enough to take the next step forward. And sometimes, that's all clarity needs to do. Because once you take that first step with confidence, the rest of the path begins revealing itself naturally. Another interesting thing people often notice during a Mercury Cazimi is a sudden urge to simplify their lives. Things that once felt important start losing their grip. Old worries begin to fade. Certain priorities shift quietly but noticeably. You may realize that something you've been chasing no longer matters as much as it once did. Or you might recognize that something you've been ignoring actually deserves more of your attention. This is the universe reorganizing your internal compass, realigning you with what truly matters moving forward. And sometimes this realignment can feel surprisingly peaceful, not like a dramatic life overhaul, but like the quiet realization that you've been carrying unnecessary weight for far too long. And tonight, you finally put it down. The beauty of Mercury Cazimi is that it doesn't force change upon you. It simply shows you the truth clearly enough that change becomes natural. Once you see something clearly, resistance fades. And once resistance fades, movement begins. That movement may start small. A new decision, a new perspective, a new conversation. But those small shifts often become the beginning of much larger transformations. This is why moments like tonight's alignment can feel so significant when you look back on them later. At the time, they seem simple, almost ordinary. But months or even years later, you realize something powerful happened. Something clicked inside your awareness. And from that moment forward, your life slowly began moving in a different direction, not because you forced it, but because you finally understood something that had been waiting for your attention. And that understanding changed everything. Now there is one final piece of this Mercury Cazimi portal that makes it especially meaningful. It has to do with timing. In astrology, timing is everything. The universe doesn't place alignments randomly. They appear when certain cycles in your life are reaching turning points. And for many people listening right now, this portal is arriving during a period where something in your life is preparing to shift. You may have already sensed it, that feeling that something is changing beneath the surface. Maybe things have felt uncertain recently. Maybe certain situations have been slowing down, forcing you to pause and reflect. Or maybe you've been feeling a subtle pull toward something new, even if you can't fully explain why. That feeling is not accidental. It is part of a larger rhythm unfolding in your life. And Mercury Cazimi acts like a moment of synchronization within that rhythm. It's the moment where your awareness catches up with the direction your life has already been moving toward. Think of it like standing on a mountain trail. Sometimes the path curves in ways that make it difficult to see where you're heading. You keep walking, but you're not entirely sure what lies around the next bend. Then suddenly you reach a clearing, and for a brief moment, the entire landscape becomes visible. You can see where the path has been leading. You can see where it continues. You can see the bigger picture. That clearing is what Mercury Cazimi represents. It doesn't create the journey. It simply reveals the direction of the journey. And when that revelation happens, something inside you becomes steady. The uncertainty that once clouded your thinking begins dissolving, not because every detail is suddenly known, but because you finally understand enough to move forward with confidence. This is the gift of tonight's alignment: clarity without pressure, insight without confusion, guidance without force. The universe is not demanding anything from you tonight. It is simply offering you a moment of understanding, a moment where the noise fades and the truth becomes visible. And when that truth appears, it often feels surprisingly gentle, like remembering something you always knew, like recognizing a path that has been quietly calling your name for a long time. So as this Mercury Cazimi portal opens tonight, stay aware of the subtle shifts happening around you. Notice the thoughts that feel meaningful. Notice the conversations that linger in your mind. Notice the moments where something suddenly makes sense in a way it never did before. Those are the signals. Those are the quiet messages traveling through the alignment. And when you notice them, don't rush past them. Pause for a moment. Reflect. Allow yourself to absorb the understanding that is arriving. Because sometimes the most powerful guidance from the universe arrives not as a command, but as a realization. A realization that changes the way you see your past, the way you understand your present, and the way you step into your future. And if you feel that moment of clarity tonight or tomorrow, trust it. Because Mercury, in the heart of the sun, doesn't create illusions. It reveals truth. And truth has a quiet way of guiding you exactly where you're meant to go. So move forward with calm awareness. Keep your heart open. Keep your mind observant. And remember that sometimes the universe doesn't need to shout in order to change your life. Sometimes it simply places the right realization in your path and waits for you to recognize it.